Okay, so now that we've dealt with finding out coordinates, as well as finding out what our slope is by counting, as well as finding out our slope by our slope formula, which is y2 minus y1 equals x, or divided by x2 minus x1, we can now start to think about the equation of a line. Okay, so the unit is linear equations and linear systems, and we're going to really get into the weeds of this one. All right, so the importance of why we do all this stuff. So this lesson is on the slope and y-intercept form of an equation. Okay, so the slope and y-intercept form of the equation of a straight line. So the y-intercept, remember that if we have our Cartesian plane, the axis that goes side to side is called what? The x-axis. And the one that goes up and down is called y. So just by hearing the word y-intercept, you should kind of figure out that it's going to be some point crossing the y-axis. That's the whole point of the y-intercept. So if we had a line that crossed through this point, that this area right here, or that number, is going to be our y-intercept. Okay. So in this case, we've already looked at what m is in our last lesson, and that is slope. So the equation of a line is y equals mx plus b, where m is the slope, and b, oddly enough, I don't really understand why, but b stands for our y-intercept. Okay, so I'm just going to write that out. All right. So if we look at the following examples, our job is now going to be to state the slope and the y-intercept. It's important to remember that the slope is just m. It's not x. Okay. So the slope is just m, or that number. It's not x. So if we looked at the example y equals 5x plus 4, the slope would be 5, right? Because it's in the place of the m, and the y-intercept, or b, would be 4, or positive 4. Okay. If we had the second example, y equals negative 2x plus 7, what would be our slope? Haley? Negative 2. And our y-intercept? Positive 7, right? If we look at our next one, y equals 2 over 3x minus 6, what is our slope? Not a trick, I promise. 2 over 3, exactly. It's in that spot. I know it must seem like, oh my goodness, there's a fraction there. What do I do? No, it's that simple. It's 2 over 3. And guess what? That's a rise of 2 and a run of 3, right? It's nothing, no tricks here. What would be our y-intercept? Negative 6. Pretty straightforward, right? Seems pretty straightforward. Awesome. So now it says for each line, state the slope, the y-intercept, and the equation. We're going to do line A first. Going to make that a little bigger so we can see. So we've got to state the slope, the y-intercept, and then the equation. So we'll do the slope first. What's a way we could do the slope here? How can we figure out the slope of that first line? Yeah. Yeah, so we're going up how many? Remember, we just go from one point to the other, okay? It's okay. Yep. 3. So we have a rise of 3. So remember, we just worry about 2 points that we have, okay? So a rise of 3, and what's our run? Yep, 5. So how we got that is we just counted 1, 2, 3, right? Rise of 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we had a rise of 3 and a run of 5. Since we're going up, it's positive. Since we went to the right, it's positive. So we have a slope of 3/5. Now, how could we figure out our y-intercept? Yeah. Which is what? Which is 2. So at 2, it intercepts the y-axis. So it would be b is equal to 2. So if we had the equation was y equals mx plus b, m being the slope, and b being the y-intercept, how could we write our final equation? Yeah, go for it. Y equals 3/5x plus 2. Bingo. Nailed it. Got some eyebrows raising over there. You all right? Okay. We'll get better at this, I promise. Okay, so if we look at B, remember, we're going to count from one point to the other point. So we want to find our slope first. What is our slope? So 4. And then what was your run there, you said? 2. Okay. Can we do anything with that number? Shrug of the shoulder. Can I divide 4 by 2? Yeah. What's it equal? 2. So it's actually equal to 2. Okay. We've got to always think if we can divide the number. So say we had 8/2, we'd get 4. Or if we can put it in lowest terms, we're going to do that as well. And then what's our B from looking at that? Yep. -8. So if we put it all together, do me a favor, put it all together. 2x -8, right? Don't get into the habit of doing like 2x plus -8. Don't do that. We don't want all these signs. We don't want that. What's up? So 8, does anyone want to answer that question? Where do we get 8 from? Yeah, go for it, Ashley.
So thinking of it as like a coordinate kind of, that's how I do it, like 0 and -8.
Yep. So in to kind of condense that a little bit, we're looking at this line here, B, right? That part makes sense. And we did our rise over run between the 2 points. So we found our slope. Now the y-intercept, just like what was said, is the point that crosses that y-axis or that up and down, the big up and down thing on that plane, right? So you see this point I just circled down here? That is where it crosses the y-axis. And it does it at -8 on the y-axis. Make sense? Sweet. The light bulb went off. I saw it. Boom. So next one, last one. We've got C. I'll just scroll up. Just give me a second. All right. So we've got our line C at the top here. What is our rise over run? Yeah, go ahead. Okay, so we went down 1, 2, went down 1, 2, 3, 4. So -4. And we went to the side 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Can we do anything with -4/6? Can we change that to something? What can we change it to? Yeah. So we can divide both of those by 2, right? And put them in simpler terms. So it'd be -2/3. Always do that, guys. Okay. That's just a really good habit to get into. And then I'll scroll back up. Where on the y-axis does it cross? Sorry? 11, right? Positive 11. So do me a favor, put it all together for me, my friend. Yeah, that's you. Negative 2 over 3 what? Yeah, guys are rock stars. Okay. This making sense? Cruising with this? Okay. So now we're just going to dissect this a little bit as we go through. And it says the y-intercept versus coordinates of the y-intercept. So just like you alluded to, if you think of it like a coordinate, when it's on the y-intercept, and imagine we have x and y, right? Well, if I had something on the, if I had a y-intercept of 3, well, it doesn't go left or right. It's right on the origin. So it would be 0, 3. Okay, so if we think of it as that coordinate as well. So the y-intercept represents the value where the line crosses the y-axis, which we already know that. But it also means that x is equal to 0. Because if we think about this, I'm just going to scroll up. So if we have a number right here, I'm going to put the y-intercept at -3. If I go to figure out where my coordinates are, our first thing on our x-axis is we figure out how far it goes either left or right. If it goes left, it's negative. If we go right, it's positive. Now this coordinate, if we look at the x, it stays at 0. It doesn't go left or right. So we know that x is equal to 0. But y either goes up or down. And in this case, it's -3. So it'd be 0, -3. So the y-intercept represents not only where it crosses the y-axis, but where the x coordinate is 0. So the coordinates of the y-intercept is the ordered pair which represents the point that passes through the y-axis. So this is simple. You're going to see this on a quiz or an assignment. It's a lot of words, but it's just you dissecting it a little bit. It says state the y-intercept and coordinates of the y-intercept. So what's our y-intercept in this example? Y equals 3x plus 1. 1, right? Remember, it's y equals mx plus b, m being slope, b being y-intercept. We see that it is right here being 1. And if we know that the coordinate of that y-intercept, the x is 0, what would be our total ordered pair? 0. Where'd you get 3 from? There we go. The 3 is our what? It's okay. The 3 is our what? Our slope. And really, it doesn't ask us that, right? So the next one, y equals 2x, 2 over 3x minus 5, sorry. The y-intercept is what? Yep. Sorry? -5. And then keep going. What's the coordinates of it? No. Why do we keep going to that? We're not at the, we don't worry about, we're not worrying about the slope. 0 what? Awesome. Much better. Okay. Don't worry about that pesky slope right now. Last one. Let's nail this one down. What's our y-intercept? The back? 4. What's our coordinates? 0. And boom. Nailed it. How do we feel about that? Other than being super tired.